Hi, everybody, and welcome to this 24th episode of 5 Minutes with NY Ike. And in this episode, we're going to talk about 3 signs that IT is operating in silos. Why is this important? Because many of us are running digital transformation programs. We're trying to launch products. We're trying to improve both customer and employee experiences. We're trying to use more data and analytics in our decision making, and we're trying to invest and improve with hyper automation. So we really need the entire IT group working together. So let's get started and look at 3 of the signs that IT is operating in silos. I want to share a couple pictures of why and how IT ends up operating in silos. It just doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen because leaders aren't trying to tackle this issue. The first issue you see is that most people in IT spend their time looking at screens and working on problems. It might be looking at code. It might be looking at an incident in an incident management system. We spend a lot of our time just working out the engineering solutions that our businesses require. And so all that heads down work prevents us from sometimes understanding all the rationale and reasons about why we're working on something. Then we get disrupted by these fires from major incidents, P1s, changes in priorities that require us to reshift what we're doing, lots of context switching in terms of different things that interrupt our days. And what this causes for the average person in IT is they get lost in the journey. They forget exactly why they were assigned a project. They forget why a certain incident is listed and identified as a P1. And it requires leadership to step in and understand how to best communicate with their organizations so they don't get lost in the journey. Now I'm going to share on the next slide 3 ways to really see this happening in real time. Many of you know that I lead a company called StarCIO, and one of our programs is a driving digital assessment. So I want to share with you 3 things that we look for when we do our assessments that are clear indicators that there's a problem or an issue and an opportunity around cleaning up silos in IT. The very first thing is I ask everyone I meet during one of these assessments, do they know who their customers are? And I'm not just speaking about the business's customers. I'm talking about people working on an agile team, people working on a project, working on a request or an incident or a change management process. And do they really understand who their customer is, what value prop they're doing for them, why is it important? And sometimes I get answers like, oh, we're doing this for the enterprise, or we're doing this for a particular department. And I'm looking for names, I'm looking for rationale, I'm looking for how do we know what the success factor is. So if you want organizations to really be working together on transformation programs, they really need a clear idea of who their customer is and what the value proposition that they're offering. Second thing is everyone who's worked with me knows that Agile is the basis for programs that I lead around digital transformation. Lots of reasons for it, but what I find going into organizations today is that there's chances are there are multiple flavors and combinations of flavors of Agile going on in their organization. When I started with Agile about a decade ago, maybe even longer at this point, it was a lot of education. People came in with no process or a waterfall mindset, and we spent a lot of time explaining what Scrum was and why commitment was important. Today, there's over 40 frameworks. This is coming from Craig Smith from 5 years ago, so there are even more frameworks than exist out there. And chances are, when you say Agile in a medium-sized company or an enterprise, there's probably lots of different ways people are practicing it, lack of standards. Sometimes there's multiple tools, and it's really hard to get an organization to be running a transformation program when people aren't speaking the same language or running the same processes or having a clear idea of roles and responsibilities. So it's one of the second thing that we really look for in a StarCIO driving digital assessment is around how Agile is being executed. Third thing is around meetings. And this seems to be the biggest area of dysfunction that I see in companies. It's changed a lot, obviously, over the last year with COVID, but you look at people's calendars and you wonder what percentage of them are filled with meetings, how many of people have to be invited to them, how many different meetings does it require to record a decision? Are they actually recording decisions? Are there clear decision authorities in the organization? And so when people are meeting and discussing a lot of things over and over and over again, it's really hard to see the velocity and productivity that organizations need to drive transformation programs. So these are three areas of dysfunction that I see in IT that create operating silos and prevent organizations from really running transformation programs. Now, in the next slide, I'm going to share with you the first thing you need to do to start tackling this problem. First step to addressing IT operational silos is to make sure everybody understands the vision behind what they're working on. This is coming from a recent post that you can see at the URL above, and I share information about StarCIO's one-page vision statement. We apply it to products, projects, agile teams, IT service centers, testing frameworks, anything and everything people are working on. They can be multiple years and sharing a long-term vision. They can be up to the current release that a team is working on in application development. They are specific about the customer value proposition, the strategic need behind what is being worked on, and why it's important to the organization. It's typical for an employee to have 2 or 3 of those vision statements stapled or pasted on their desk or in front of them, and that keeps them aligned and understanding who they're doing their work for, why it's important, who their teammates are, and what they're trying to accomplish. Again, it's a one-pager, and it's a simple set of exercises to get teams to work on these and use them as a way of collaborating better around their transformation programs. Thank you for watching this week's episode of 5 Minutes with NY Ike. You can join our newsletter at the URL that you see above, starcio.com/5nyike/EP24. You should also sign up and subscribe to this YouTube channel. I put out a new video about every 2 weeks. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you in a couple weeks with our next episode.